Presidential popularity does not necessarily have a direct correlation, though, to legislative proposals. It's often difficult to measure a correlation between how much a president can get done with presidential popularity. Even popular proposals don't necessarily mean that they'll be passed. You see presidents trying to avoid controversy in order to get more passed. So even if they're popular, they may abandon a controversial issue for the sake of getting more things accomplished. Presidents also realize that timing is important. Generally, most presidents are most popular immediately after the election, which we refer to as the honeymoon period. Think about Obama really making that final push to get health care taken care of in the first year, or close to the first year. He knew that after that his popularity would wane. The decline in popularity, as the term continues when we ask that question, why? That is in part because of a sluggish economy. It can also be as a result of scandal or an unpopular war. National emergencies, on the other hand, however, give a spike in popularity. An example of that would be 9/11. So in the end, while we talk about the president being popular, it's difficult to translate that into legislative success. Most of what we've talked about as far as the presidential power in action has been the president being a more offensive president. But the president also does act, if you will, on the defense, going into checks onto other branches. One such check on other branches is the budget. Here you see the cute little piggy banks, right? The president's staff and the Office of Management and Budget put together a budget proposal to present to Congress. So while Congress has to pass the budget, the president will make recommendations. And the budget is often a reflection of the administration's priorities, and policies will show up there. The president can say no by excluding an executive agency proposal from the final budget, etc. So the budget is a great reflection. We've talked many times about how money talks. Another check on the other branches that the president has is the veto. Who would have thought that someone would do some graffiti art with the word veto? And then take a picture of it and put it on Photobucket. The veto can send a message. The president can send a veto message to Congress within 10 days of receiving a bill and set forth for reasons not signing the bill, kind of giving Congress a guideline. If you want me to pass this, then you need to change these things. A bill can be returned to the president if the veto is overridden by 2/3 of a vote, which rarely happens. A couple of the veto items that we need to mention is a line item veto. Remember, line item veto is when the president is able to go literally line by line through a bill and veto certain portions of a bill. Not the entire thing, just portions. The Supreme Court did rule line item vetoes unconstitutional. And also remember that if a bill is not signed or vetoed within 10 days while Congress is in session, then it becomes a law. A pocket veto occurs when the president doesn't sign a bill or veto it within 10 days and Congress has already adjourned. Then that would become not a law. Another check on the other branches that the president has is executive privilege. And in some ways, this can be viewed as having confidential communication, that the president and advisors' communications don't have to be disclosed, and that information could essentially be withheld from another branch. The reason for executive privilege is separation of power, and that you need a president to receive true candid advice. You don't want members of the cabinet or other advisors to be concerned about speaking to the president honestly. that there would be any kind of fallout, etc. And why do you have Nixon here, you ask? Well, remember that during Watergate, Nixon tried to claim executive privilege. He taped all voice recorded all communications in the Oval Office, and in the discussion of whether or not he had tried to cover up the break-in into the Democratic National Headquarters, people wondered, was Nixon privy to that information? Did he cover it up, etc.? And so Congress challenged him and said that they wanted the tapes. Nixon refused, and the Supreme Court ruled that executive privilege has a very sound basis, particularly for military and diplomatic matters, but it's not necessarily immunity in all circumstances. So the president can claim executive privilege, although executive privilege is limited. Similar to how the president creating a budget and spending that money is a reflection of their priorities and policies, presidents have also tried to impound funds, meaning not spending them. Presidents have refused to spend money as appropriated by Congress. Nixon did this in 1972, and as a result was the Budget Reform Act of 1974, which requires the president to notify Congress of funds they do not intend on spending. Congress must agree within 45 days to delete the item. If Congress does not agree with the impoundment, the president is required to spend the money. And the president also must notify Congress of spending delays. So there you have a great example of checks and balances at work and a very delicate balance of power that continues to go back and forth.